Hey y'all, I'm Cece and welcome to a new mini-series on my channel that I'm calling Hall of Fame. Wait, I'm sorry, I'm getting word that I got the name of that series wrong. It's apparently called Hall of Shame? Hall of Shame. So, basically what happened is that last year I didn't do any haul videos. I did like 2. And then the year happened, and I didn't film all that much. So the last time I updated you, the last time I told you about books I had purchased recently was for March. So you all voted on what I should do. Should I still cover all of these books? How should I cover all of these books? You all said you should still do your regular monthly hauls, but come up with a cute little name, so welcome to Hall of Shame. We're talking about all of the books that I purchased while we were on lockdown, basically. I spent all of 2020 still buying and receiving books. Now you're gonna hear about it. Welcome to the April video where I'm talking about things that I bought and received in the month of April 2020. But before we get into the meat of this episode, I wanted to take a minute and say that this video is sponsored by Skillshare. I feel like you all know the deal by now. Skillshare is an online learning community for curious and creative people to build their skills. It's full of thousands of classes in so many different topics. In the vein of doing a video for stuff that happened last April, I wanted to recommend a class about productivity and creativity, aptly named Productivity for Creatives. This is a class by Thomas Frank, and it really helped me figure out the fact that I needed to develop my own system instead of just kind of running myself ragged, hoping that other people's systems would work for me. My outdated system means I did 2 hauls last year. I would love for that to no longer be the case, and I think that was happening because I was relying on outdated stuff to make my channel happen. This is a great class to learn about how you can make productivity work for you, personally. Premium membership to Skillshare gets you unlimited access to all of the classes on their site, and that premium membership works out to be less than $10 a month. Plus, the first 1,000 people to click the link in my description are going to get a free trial of that premium membership, so definitely check that link out, check Skillshare out, and start learning today. And with that, let's talk about some books that I bought in April. It's been so long since I've done a haul, I feel a little out of practice, to be honest with you, but I have still split my books into 3 relative piles. We've got the books I bought personally. That's the biggest stack. It usually is. We have the stack of books I was sent by publishers, and then I have an other stack, which includes a couple books from my Amazon wish list that were sent to me, and 1 book that I got via ARCs for trade. Let me tell you, remembering the method of acquisition for all of these books was a journey. A journey. So let's talk about some of the books I was sent by publishers first. These were the big 2020 releases that I was being sent by publishers unsolicited, or did I request any of these? I did request a couple of them, actually. So these first 2 were both sent by Scholastic. We've got I Kissed Alice by Anna Birch, as well as Where We Go From Here by Lucas Rocha. These were the fabulous bits of Scholastic mail that I got last April. So, I Kissed Alice is a YA contemporary. It is an FF romance. I'm obsessed with this cover. It's like half the reason I requested this book and half the reason I was interested in it. Basically, if you put 2 girls on the cover of a book and they're clearly love interests for each other, you've kind of already got my money, which I just realized is going to be proven even more as we go through this. I'm so excited about this. It's about 2 girls who are enemies in real life. They're both competing for the same scholarship, I think, and unbeknownst to them, they are best friends collaborating on a webcomic together online, and they're kind of falling for each other there while hating each other in real life and not knowing which is which. So, I'm very excited. This is gonna be fabulous. Or at least, I hope it will be. I was anticipating it, so they sent me this. As well as Where We Go From Here. I'm trying to remember if this has a translator. English translation copyright, Larissa Helena. Where We Go From Here is by a Brazilian author. It was originally published, I don't even remember when, and it has been translated into English, so they sent me a copy. It is set in modern-day Rio de Janeiro and explores, like, modern-day implications of HIV, stigmas. So this has 3 points of view, and I will let you know what I think about it when I read it. Thank you to Scholastic for sending these to me last April. If at any point you hear a bell jingling, it's because Leia is sitting on my bed and she loves to shake her little head every time I finish saying a sentence. So, I'm doing my best when I edit this, but she loud. Next, I have a book that was sent to me by Tor Teen. They sent this book to me because I was doing like an Instagram picture for it. It's a book I was really anticipating, so it worked out. The Extraordinaries by T.J. Klune. This is not the only T.J. Klune book on this list. This is a queer love story between Nova City's most extraordinary hero and the hero's biggest fan. I've been hearing a lot of incredible things about TJ Klune. I am very sure that I'm going to love a bunch of his books. I haven't read any of them yet, so we'll see what happens. Don't worry, I have The House in the Cerulean Sea. It's, like, literally it's right here. I promise, I have it, and I'll read it. You know, I will take any excuse to read about superheroes, particularly queer superheroes. Plus, this is by an author I think I'm gonna love, so I definitely was super hype when they asked if they could send me this. And that's all. That's all I have to say about it. I don't know how to end these segments anymore. How do I wrap this shit up? Moving on, we have a book that I have talked about in other videos, and I will continue to talk about it regularly. That is Felix Ever After by Case and Calendar. This was sent to me by Harper Teen. If you want to hear more of my thoughts about this book, I'll put that wrap up on the screen. This is a delightful YA contemporary with a demi-boy main character. It's about growing up, coming of age, coming out more than once, and it's fabulous. So thank you again to Harper Teen for sending this to me, because I loved it a lot. Okay, last up on the publisher's route, we have 2 books I don't know nearly as much about. They were both sent to me for Instagram picture purposes, and, I took very similar pictures to promote both of these. Ta-da! These are the pictures I took. It isn't until I looked at these that I realized they were both a part of my, books as outfits Instagram series. So, we have from William Morrow, The Sweeney Sisters. This is by Leanne Dolan. It is contemporary fiction, like commercial fiction. This is about 3 sisters who used to be close, drifted apart, and after their father dies, they come back together, and there's a 4th sister who they didn't know about, who's also at the event. So this is about grieving, like growing up and siblings and all that jazz. When I read the description of it, I was very excited to read it. I had never heard about it until William Morrow reached out and asked if I wanted a copy, and I'm glad that they let me know about it, because I want to read it now. And the other book that I have is from Minotaur Books, and it is Little Secrets by Jennifer Hillier. This is a thriller. I know when I said I would take a copy of the book that I read a description, but you've got to know that that was in April of 2020. Glancing at the description, because to be honest with you, I don't like to know that much, it looks like this is about a married couple whose son goes missing, and then this picks up like a year after the son goes missing when the cases kind of started to go cold. That's kind of all I need to know about it. I'm willing to go in with very little, and I thought this looked cool, and I liked the cover. So that's it for all of the publisher mailings for April. Kind of all over the place, but yeah. Before we move into the stack of books I purchased myself, I want to get into my other stack. So I want to talk about the book that I got via Arcs for Trade, which was Something to Talk About by Meryl Wilsner. I read this in June of last year. This is an adult FF romance. This publisher, Berkeley, it's their first FF romance, and Berkeley's like a pretty big romance imprint, so it's a big deal. It's about this actress, and she takes her assistant to a red carpet event one night, and a picture is snapped of the two of them, like, laughing, having a very private moment, and immediately everyone thinks they're dating, and it kind of, you know, grows from there. Bi main character, lesbian main character. The bi main character also has asthma, which is pretty frequently addressed, and it's one of the only times I've seen that done in, like, a romance book, or frankly any book. And then Jo, who is a lesbian, I believe is Chinese American. I think that this had more potential than it had sizzle, but I enjoyed reading it, and I got it via Arcs for Trade, which was fun. Also, Kit, the person who exchanged arcs with me, did this art of the two main characters, and I'm going to treasure it forever. So this is the art that the book came with, and I think that's just delightful. I was so charmed. So no matter how I felt about something to talk about, I'm just gonna keep that note in this book probably forever, because I'm very sentimental and easily emotional. And then I also have 2 books that were sent to me from my Amazon wishlist, or rather, I have 1 book that was sent to me from my Amazon wishlist, and then there was another book tacked onto that. So the book that was on my wishlist originally was Woven in Moonlight by Isabel Ibanez. This is the first part of a series. I don't know if it is a duology or if there are going to be more. I was drawn in by this book because of the cover, which was designed by the author, and I think it's stunning. The second book was also designed by the author, and I think it's also beautiful. But also this is supposed to be a rich, gorgeously written fantasy that's inspired by Bolivian history and mythology. This was sent to me by Astoria, and as part of that, there was also the other TJ Klune book that I have to talk about in this haul, Wolfsong. I had heard in passing about this series. I didn't know that much about it, but it was TJ Klune. I figured I would learn about it inevitably, and I did learn about it in April of 2020. I'm not going to say anything else about this book because I don't know anything about it, and I'm curious. I'm thinking eventually I'm going to do like a TJ Klune vlog or something, and I would include this there, and you'll have to wait and see if that actually happens. If my desire to read ever returns from this long, long winter. So thank you so much to Astoria for sending up both of these books to me. Okay, so now we can get to the last of this stack, the last of this haul, which is all stuff I purchased myself. 8 of these were purchased in one go from thrift books, so I'll talk about those first. Some of these were purchased for a reading vlog. I'm not going to tell you what any of them is about because I don't know. They are classic mysteries, and that is all I have for you. So, for classic mysteries, we have Double Indemnity by James N. Cain. Oh my god, what? It's so easy. Why can't I say this? Double Indemnity by James M. I almost said N again. James M. Cain. Is it impossible to say James M. Cain? Try it and see how many of you say N. Is it just me? God. We have Death Trap by Ira Levin. A thriller in 2 acts. This edition made me deeply nostalgic for my women in theater class that I took in college, where I just accumulated all of these fabulous plays by women that, you know, were all printed this exact way. This edition makes me nostalgic, and I hope it makes you guys nostalgic too. We also have Malice Aforethought by Francis Isles. Let's see, when was this published? There's a thing I could tell you about it. So this was originally published in 1931, and this edition was published in 1980. The last of the mysteries, The Red House Mystery by A.A. Milne. I think that this is just like a very cool cover objectively, and I think it's gonna be badass in Instagram pictures. Like, it's so bold. I know nothing about those books. I bought them for a reading vlog, so that's all I'm going to say about them. Thank goodness for thrift books and its existence. This isn't affiliated with thrift books in any way. It's just that when I didn't have a lot of money to buy books, and I still don't, thus why I still use thrift books, but when I originally didn't have a lot of money to buy books, thrift books was one of the best options. It's a great way to get, like, older used books. And I really trust it. Like, I have gotten a lot of books from thrift books over the years, and it was nice to order through thrift books again. So, we have 4 other books here, 2 of which I have read, 1 of which I have not, and 1 of which I'm currently reading. Isn't that exciting? So we have Under the Lights by Dahlia Adler. This is a surprise library edition, which happens every now and then, but I'm not that upset because I've had to de-libraryify books before. I've gone to library book sales before. If you're unaware of the concept of that, some libraries have sales for, like, surplus inventory. And oftentimes that inventory has library marking on it, and they don't remove it. So you have to learn how to remove that or get over the fact that it's covered in library stuff. Thus, I have learned effective methods for removing tape residues and stuff, so things look the way that I like them. This was apparently originally in the New York Public Library. How's about that? It also has girls kissing. Don't know if you noticed. You know I noticed. And I believe it's the second book in a romance series, but you don't have to read the first book. It's kind of the delight of romance books, especially if only one of the books in the series is queer, you know? Or only one of the books in the series has a premise that interests you. It's like, oh, thank God I don't have to read all those other books to get to this. I think more series should work like that. This is also more romance about famous queer people. I vibe with romances about famous people. I don't know what it is. Also, Dahlia Adler is like the queen of knowing about queer lit releases. This channel, this platform that I have built probably would not exist without all of the work that Dahlia has done for years and years and continues to do, and I continue to rely on her. And the fact that I haven't read one of her books yet, absurd. So, bought a copy on Thrift Books. I think it's going to be delightful. I also think you should keep an eye out for Dahlia's book that's coming out this year called Cool for the Summer. The Bi Vibes. It's a bi love triangle. And it has the most beautiful cover. The book I am currently reading, Santa Olivia by Jacqueline Carey. I'm like this far, so I have this much left. This is set on a military buffer zone between Mexico and the United States. It's a place called Santa Olivia, and this is sort of a take on superhero mythology. This is about, let's see, the main character's name is Lou, and her father was a genetically altered soldier. Like, the United States government did experiments on them and turned them into these wolf hybrid soldiers. So Lou is the daughter of one of those soldiers and therefore has some of his abilities, and this is kind of about her growing up and starting to be a person who actually cares about Santa Olivia and the people who live there. Plus, it's hella queer. So, last, I have 2 books that I've already read. And I just didn't have copies of them yet. So I had an early e-copy of Radical by E.M. Cokie. This is a book about a butch lesbian. It's a YA book. Her name is Bex, and she is a survivalist who sincerely believes that the world is on the verge of imminent collapse. It's one of the darkest and most unique YA books I've ever read, and I've always wanted to have a physical copy so I can take more pictures of it and not just talk about it in videos because I think it's cool. This is another copy that came as a library copy, so I'm gonna have to remove this plastic, but again, it'll be okay. I've done it before, I'll do it again. Actually, let's see. Wonders of the Invisible World was originally purchased as a library copy, and I believe there are definitely places where you can tell. Yeah, like you can tell in some places where tape was or markings were, but with the success of this book, someday soon, Radical 2 will look the way that I want it to. And the last thrift books find that I have is The Break by Katharina Vermette. I read this in 2019 from the library, and I've just wanted my own copy. So this starts out with a young mother who believes that she has witnessed a violent crime. And from the moment that she witnesses that, we are following her as well as most of the other female members of her family. We're kind of jumping between all of them as all of their lives are impacted by that moment of violence and her witnessing that moment of violence. This book does deal with some heavy topics, but it was just the most remarkable, like, family saga investigating the lives, the interiors of this family of Indigenous women and how they handled this moment and how they handle all of their moments. I'm just about it in a lot of ways, and I'm very glad that I have my own copy of the book now, because I thought it was just fabulous, and I would like to read it again someday. And I think you should read it too. If you like literary fiction and you're okay with being sad, but in a way that explores the interiority of womanhood, which is all I want. Okay, we are on to the last stuff from April. A strange stack. We have a pre-order, a book that, oh god, I want to say I bought this from Target, but I have absolutely no confirmation for that. Wait. I lied. This was also from Astoria. Oh my god, this explains why I had such a hard time solving this mystery earlier. I was just staring at this book going, how did I get this? Where would I have bought this? So thank you, Astoria, for this as well. I'm excited to read it. Speaking of family sagas, Pachinko by Min-Jin Lee. I am rapidly losing my voice because I haven't spoken this long in a while. So this is a book about 4 generations of a poor, proud immigrant family and their fight to control their destinies. It starts in the early 1900s in Korea and kind of expands out from there. I'm a huge fan of family sagas. It was ingrained within me by my mom, oddly enough. And I'm pretty sure she got it from her mom. But yeah, whenever I see a family saga, I kind of reach towards it not only because I'm interested in that, but also it means there's a potential that I can recommend it to my mom, and she can read it, and we can discuss it. Or alternatively, I can recommend it to my mom, she can read it, and I can say I'm going to read it for years while leaving her on the hook, which is very mean, but I do it a lot. I'm very excited to read this book. I think it's going to be gorgeous. It's definitely chunky, but I'm into it. I don't know. I'll read this, and I'll let you know what I think. I also one day got really sick of not owning Annie on My Mind anymore, so I just bought it. I originally read a copy of this from the library, and I think I've wanted to remember, like, the gorgeousness of the experience of reading that library copy. This was written in the 80s, and it is queer YA that ends happily. It's the first one to do that ever. So this is like a huge piece of lesbian fiction history. And penciled into the copy of the library book was You Are Not Alone. And, you know, I found that in a copy of this book that was being passed around a very, very conservative religious neighborhood. And it just made me really happy to see. So I've kind of been clinging to the purity of finding that note for years. But it was time to own my own copy. I think that this is delightful. These wonderful 1980s New York lesbians go on a date that I have been on. Basically, this has all the energy that lesbians want right now. So if you haven't read Annie on My Mind, I definitely think you should. And I'm glad I own my own copy. Okay, and the final book that I have, the last book that I got in April of last year, is a book that I pre-ordered. It was released at the beginning of April. It was Check Please Book 2 Sticks and Scones by Ngozi Ukazu. I've talked about this so many fucking times. You know I think it's fabulous. It was one of my favorite books of the year. This is a series about a former figure skater turned hockey player named Eric Biddle, who is moving away from his home in Georgia to attend a university in the Northeast Massachusetts, maybe? He's a vlogger, he's a baker, he's a candlestick maker? No, he's gay. And these are the sagas of him and hockey and found family and college and gay stuff. It's delightful. It's one of my favorite things in existence. So I pre-ordered this, and I've read it, and I'll probably read it about 1,000,000 more times. So great investment on my part. Okay, that's it. That is it for my very first ever Hall of Shame. Hall of Shame. I'm not that ashamed, to be honest with you. I hope you liked hearing about some of these titles. I hope I haven't scared you off from future installments of Hall of Shame. I'm going to continue to do some regular hauls, so I'll hopefully be caught up in 2021 while I finish catching up on 2020. If you happen to leave a comment, then maybe consider leaving a little sunshine emoji along with it. There are 2 reasons for this. First of all, will mean you watched to the end of this video, and that will make me very happy. I'll probably cry. I'm emotional, it takes very little. Also, when I scroll through the comments, it'll be all sunshiny and joyful, and that just makes me think, like, that's gonna be a good time. I'll have fun scrolling through those comments. Thanks again to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Definitely check out the link in the description. Thank you all so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in another video very soon. Bye!